Okay, so picture this Mike Tyson, the former undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, is going up against Jake Paul.
Jake Paul.
The internet personality turned boxer. It's like something out of a movie, right?
It's pretty wild.
Yeah, and you guys sent us a ton of articles about this fight that's happening tomorrow night. So we got to unpack this whole Tyson-Paul thing together.
Yeah, let's dive in.
So we have Tyson, a total boxing legend with this really storied and kind of controversial past, and he's stepping back into the ring at 58 years old.
58.
58.
58.
And his opponent is a 27-year-old who got famous doing YouTube pranks and diss tracks.
I mean, it's a crazy matchup when you think about it.
It is, and to make things even more interesting, it's not a typical pay-per-view fight. They're going head-to-head at the Dallas Cowboys Stadium, but the whole thing is being streamed on Netflix.
On Netflix.
We've got this Associated Press article that really dives into what all this means, and it feels like a total shakeup for boxing.
It's definitely turning the traditional boxing model on its head.
Yeah.
You've got this huge age gap between the fighters, a social media star is involved, and it's being distributed by a streaming giant. I mean,
it's a whole new ball game.
Yeah, it really points to a potential shift in how boxing is consumed and promoted.
Yeah, this article also talks about the unlikely friendship between Tyson and Paul.
It's interesting.
They've been seen hanging out together, but then you see things like that weigh-in yesterday where Tyson actually slapped Paul.
Oh, yeah.
What's up with that dynamic?
I mean, it's such a fascinating mix of camaraderie and tension.
Yeah.
You have Paul playing the villain, calling himself the heel. He's been trash-talking, saying he's going to knock Tyson out. It's all very calculated and theatrical,
It's like he's playing to his online persona, right?
Exactly.
It's like watching a real-life wrestling promo.
Totally. Yeah.
And then there's Tyson, who has been way more subdued in the lead-up to this fight. He's even said he's not in it for the money.
Which is interesting.
Especially considering his past financial struggle.
Right.
So what is motivating Tyson at this point in his life, if it's not about the money? I mean, the article mentions his past rehab, prison time, bankruptcy. Is this fight maybe a way for him to rewrite his story?
It could be a form of self-redemption.
Yeah.
A chance to prove that he's resilient, to show that he's not defined by his past mistakes.
Right.
I mean, we are wired to be drawn to these comeback stories where someone confronts their demons and tries to make things right.
It's like a real-life Rocky Balboa moment.
Yeah, but maybe with a bit more baggage.
Definitely more baggage.
There's definitely more complexity to Tyson's story than a simple underdog narrative. And the fact that this is all happening on Netflix, a platform that millions of people have access to, just adds another layer to it.
It's true.
It's almost like a public therapy session.
Yeah.
A raw and very public attempt at finding peace.
And speaking of public spectacle, the article also goes into how this fight is shaking up the financial side of boxing.
The money.
Yeah, Paul is reportedly making a crazy $40 million for this fight, while Tyson's cut is $20 million. I mean, those are some serious numbers.
Wow.
Especially considering Paul is the less experienced fighter.
It really speaks to how the landscape of boxing is changing.
Yeah.
Paul's massive online following that he built from years of YouTube and social media savvy translates to real-world value.
It's true. He's bringing a built-in audience.
Exactly. And that's something that traditional boxing promoters and networks are starting to realize. It's not just about championship belts and fight records anymore.
Right.
It's about who can bring in viewers, and Paul has figured that out.
He got the formula.
Yeah, he has.
So this fight is really about more than just two guys punching each other.
It's so much bigger.
It's about legacy, second chances, and maybe even the future of boxing, and it's all happening against the backdrop of this, interesting friendship or whatever you want to call it between Tyson and Paul.
It's definitely a strange brew.
Yeah.
You have the respect and mentorship they seem to have for each other, and then you have the theatrics and the trash talk that's just fueling the hype machine.
It's a weird mix.
Yeah, it's a blend of genuine connection and calculated promotion, which makes it all the more captivating to watch.
You've definitely given us a lot to think about in this first part of our deep dive.
For sure.
What's really hitting me is how this fight seems to be tapping into something deeper, something about our fascination with redemption stories and our willingness to embrace these unconventional events.
It's definitely tapping into something cultural, something that goes beyond just the sport of boxing, and the fact that this is all unfolding on a platform like Netflix, where people who might never watch a traditional boxing match can see it, makes it even more fascinating.
It's like a cultural experiment we're all watching.
Yeah, it really is.
Seeing how these worlds collide. And that's just the beginning of our deep dive. We'll be back in part 2 to explore more about Tyson's redemption arc and what this fight means for his legacy. And we're back for part 2 of our deep dive into this whole Tyson-Paul spectacle. And I'm already feeling like it's more than just a fight.
Yeah.
It's like a story that's unfolding in real time, you know?
It's a story that really resonates with people because we've all made mistakes. And I think deep down, we all want to believe in second chances.
Right.
Tyson's life has been a roller coaster, full of triumph and tragedy.
For sure.
And this fight seems like it's his way of coming to terms with his past.
Yeah, that AP article we've been looking at really paints a picture of his journey. He achieved this incredible success as a young boxer, like becoming the youngest heavyweight champion in history.
At just 20 years old.
20 years old.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And then all the legal troubles, the personal struggles, the financial downfall. I mean,
it's a lot for one person to handle.
it really is. And he's been so open about those struggles, even calling this fight part of his healing process.
Right. He's talked about how boxing has always been his therapy.
Yeah.
Like he's trying to get rid of some demons in the ring.
But some people might say that this whole redemption narrative is just a marketing ploy. There's a lot of money on the line here.
Oh, absolutely. There's always that element of spectacle in boxing, and this fight is no different.
Right.
But I do think there's a genuine desire for redemption from Tyson.
Yeah.
You can see it in how he's carrying himself.
Yeah.
It feels different this time around.
There's a vulnerability there I haven't seen before. And the fact that this is on Netflix and not pay-per-view,
Right.
it makes it feel more accessible, more intimate somehow.
Yeah. It's like we're seeing behind the curtain,
Yeah.
We're watching this very personal journey unfold on a global stage.
And for Tyson, who has often been seen as this like larger-than-life, almost mythical figure, it kind of humanizes him.
Right, exactly.
And speaking of the Netflix deal, it's pretty groundbreaking for the sport. I mean, this is the first time a fight this big is being streamed on a platform like this. Could this change how we watch boxing?
I think it's definitely a sign of the times. Streaming services are disrupting traditional media in every industry, and boxing's no exception.
Yeah.
Netflix has a huge global reach, so this could introduce boxing to a whole new audience.
Yeah, and we can't forget about the money. I mean, the article said Paul's making twice as much as Tyson for this fight.
That's wild.
It's crazy. It really flips the script on how these deals usually work.
It shows the power of influencer culture and personal branding.
Yeah.
Paul has built this huge following online, and that translates to real-world value. He's not just a boxer, he's a media personality, a brand.
He's almost hacked the system.
Yeah.
Like proving you don't need a bunch of championship belts to be a big name in boxing.
It's a smart move on his part. He's using his online clout to get these big deals and changing the financial game in boxing.
But this whole unconventional pairing does raise some ethical questions.
Yeah.
The article mentioned Tyson's recent health scare, that stomach ulcer that postponed the fight. I mean, is it really responsible to put a 58-year-old, even a legend like Tyson, in the ring?
Yeah.
Especially with his health issues.
It's a valid concern, for sure.
Yeah.
And there's always a risk with boxing, no matter how old you are. But Tyson got medical clearance, and they've put safety measures in place, like shorter rounds, heavier gloves, to try and reduce the risk.
Still, you gotta wonder if it's worth it for Tyson and for Paul.
Yeah, it puts Paul in a weird spot, too.
Right.
If he wins easily, people might say it's just because Tyson's older and wasn't at his best.
Yeah.
And if he loses, it could hurt his reputation as this rising star in boxing.
It's almost a no-win situation for him.
Yeah, kind of.
And, shifting gears a bit, the article also talks about the co-main event.
The rematch?
Yeah, the Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano rematch for the undisputed super lightweight title.
That's a big one.
We gotta talk about this fight. It deserves some serious attention.
Absolutely. This is huge for women's boxing. Their first fight at Madison Square Garden was historic.
It was sold out. It was on fire. Everyone was watching.
It was such a good fight. A real nail-biter.
I was on the edge of my seat the whole time.
Oh, and now, with Paul supporting them and the fight being on Netflix, this rematch has the potential to be the biggest women's sporting event ever in terms of money.
It's incredible. It really shows how much women's boxing is growing and the power of this platform.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's interesting that Paul has been a big advocate for women's boxing.
He has.
He even said he's more excited about the Taylor Serrano fight than his own.
Yeah.
That kind of support from someone like him is a game changer.
It really is. It shows progress, and it highlights how this event is about way more than just two guys fighting for glory or redemption.
Right.
It's about challenging the norm, creating opportunities, and showcasing the incredible talent in women's boxing.
It adds another layer of meaning to this whole event. So we've covered a lot in this part of our deep dive, Tyson's personal journey, Jake Paul's business smarts, and the potential of this Taylor-Serrano rematch. We'll be back in part 3 to look at the bigger implications of all this for the future of boxing. Welcome back to the final round of our deep dive into this whole Tyson-Paul thing. The more we talk about this, the more I realize how many layers there are.
It is pretty multifaceted.
Yeah, it's like peeling back an onion, except instead of tears, you get all these fascinating insights.
That's a good one.
So we've talked about Tyson's whole redemption arc.
Yeah.
And the disruption Jake Paul's bringing with his online persona, and the potential of this Taylor-Serrano rematch.
Right.
But let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture. What does this fight tell us about the future of boxing?
That's the big question.
When I first heard about this matchup, I thought it was just a publicity stunt, a cash grab. But after reading all these articles you sent, I'm starting to think it's a much bigger deal.
I think so too.
It's almost like a case study in how sports are adapting to, the digital world.
Exactly. One of the most significant things here is that Netflix is involved.
Right.
By streaming this fight, they're opening up boxing to a global audience that might never have paid for a pay-per-view.
It's like they're making it accessible to everyone, especially casual fans and younger people who are so used to watching everything online.
Yeah, the younger generation is the future of any sport.
Exactly. And this could be a way to get them excited about boxing again,
Right, bring in a new wave of viewers who are used to streaming and watching things on demand.
And that could lead to more innovative ways to promote and present boxing matches.
For sure. It's like we're seeing the birth of boxing 2.0.
Yeah, and Jake Paul, with his social media skills and knack for putting on a show, seems to be leading the way.
He's definitely a trailblazer.
Yeah.
He's proving that being a skilled boxer isn't enough anymore. You have to be a master at self-promotion.
You have to be a brand.
Exactly, a brand unto yourself to really grab people's attention these days.
It's like he took the influencer marketing playbook and used it for boxing.
And it's working.
Big time. He's bringing huge crowds, making serious money, and shaking things up for the people who have always held the power in boxing.
It's making people reconsider what a legitimate boxing match even is.
Yeah. Is it all about skill and experience, or are entertainment and showmanship becoming just as important?
That's the question.
It's tough to answer, and this fight is really pushing those boundaries, blurring the lines between sport and spectacle.
It's forcing us to look at our own biases about boxing, too.
Right.
Are we sticking to tradition, or are we open to new formats, new personalities that might bring in a wider audience?
It's a debate that's not going away anytime soon. But one thing is for sure, this fight is generating a ton of buzz.
It is.
And that's good for boxing. It's getting
Right.
people talking and debating things they might not have otherwise.
And don't forget about the positive impact on women's boxing.
That's right.
That Taylor-Serrano rematch could be the most lucrative women's sporting event ever.
It's amazing.
It shows how much support there is for female athletes in a sport that has always been dominated by men.
And we got to give Jake Paul some credit for that.
He's been a big advocate.
He's used his platform to support women's boxing and push for more equality.
It's great to see athletes using their influence to make a difference.
It really is. It shows that sports can be more than just entertainment. They can start important conversations and be a force for positive change.
For sure.
And that's what I find so interesting about this whole Tyson-Paul event. It's more than just a fight. It's a reflection of our world. All the cultural shifts and technological advancements that are happening around us.
It's a story about redemption and disruption and how both sports and entertainment are changing.
It's a story that's far from over.
That's for sure.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
I'm really curious to see what happens next for boxing, and I encourage our listeners to watch this fight with open minds. Think about what motivates these fighters, all the forces at play, and what it all means for this sport we love.
It's a fight that goes beyond the ring, It speaks to something deeper about us, about our culture, our values, and our need for connection and meaning.
That's a great point. Well, thank you for joining us on this journey into the Tyson-Paul phenomenon.
Absolutely.
We'll be back soon with another deep dive into a topic that'll make you think and challenge what you thought you knew.